Romero with the back. Heung-min Son, what can go wrong when he's on form? It's a dream come true, so sit back, relax and vibe with us. Special guests every time here to discuss. Bring your passion, come along for the ride, and don't forget to subscribe, cause it's Hollie's Hotspurs, welcome back. Talking Tottenham every week, no better place to be sat. If it's a win, lose, draw, we'll be here for a chat. Best believe we tackle topics like Romero in the back. Heung-min Son, what can...
Hello and welcome to another episode of Hollie Hotspurs Live. I think we're live, just like Spurs, we've started off well in the background and not actually seem to have come through into light as we speak right now. So I'm just going to double check. Have you heard? Actually sure if we are live or not. This is a good start. This is a really good start.
I can head over to YouTube and have a look. Let's have a look.
Oh no, it does say we are. So apparently I
There you
can't
go.
see your faces on my screen, but we are live. So without further ado, let's intro that a little bit better, because tonight we've obviously got to dissect obviously losing to Liverpool 5-1, and with me to do so I am joined by three fabulous guests. First of all, Jim, great to have you back on. How are you, my friend?
Doing very well, thanks, Holly. Yes, all eyes on Thursday, like I'm sure we'll discuss later, but I'm good. I hope you're enjoying the sunshine as much as I am.
I was going to say, I'm definitely enjoying the sunshine more than I am Tottenham at the moment. It's great to have you on, Jim, and Billie as well. It's great to have you on. How are you?
Yeah, all good. Always good to be on here. Thank you. I don't think I've ever been on after a win, but still, we're rolling.
As I say, I'm not doing it on purpose, Billie. I promise.
Well, we had 19 to be fair, so it's not your fault.
I was going to say, yeah, there wasn't a lot of wins amongst that kind of losses. But hey, we're all here for another one. And also, as you can tell, Patrick is obviously not here as well. Unfortunately, he's stuck in traffic. So my good, I was going to say friend. He's not my friend, but Jay is here to be with us. So Jay, how are you?
You got 8 years just been friend zoned live on YouTube. Incredible.
That sounds like you don't like him though, because he's not my friend.
Yeah, it sounds you were, yeah. But no, excited to be on. Obviously, kind of like Billie, I feel like I only ever come on after a loss. But it's all right though, because I'll see Billie's starting 11 against West Ham video. Can you please do the same as you did this week? Because it made my depressing Spurs life a lot more entertaining. So much appreciated.
I was going to say, I sent Jay the TikTok, Billie, and it did make our weekend. So thank you for that. I'm so glad you're on TikTok now.
I think my team would have done better, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I definitely think it would have done. But hey, we're here to obviously talk a little bit of therapy, I think, because I think we all kind of need it as Spurs fans at the moment. Because obviously that was our 19th Premier League loss at the weekend, Jim. I want to say, what was your overtake of it? But I don't know if there's a lot of positives we can take from it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, like the league form, you can't. I don't think you can really reach for many positives at all. Even being like, I'm an eternal optimist, but look, it is what it is in the league form. It just feels like the league is a sacrificial lamb for everything else that's left. The one thing that's left for us to fight for, and no matter how much we keep telling ourselves the league doesn't matter, it still feels like a dagger to the heart when we lose, and that feeling just can't go away. And no matter how hard you try, you can't suppress it. So that is just compounding every week. And I think what made it worse was the hope and the optimism when big players came back that things were going to go upwards. They haven't. And then also on top of that, there is some fortune that you think two fixtures I don't want going into that situation are Chelsea away and Liverpool away. And then to have them squeezed in amongst that, you're just like, can we just have a break? Can we just have like a few games at home where you look at paper and you go, that's great. That's the fixtures you want when your big players are back, building into a European game. Just don't give me Liverpool away, because you can't rotate without getting walloped 5-1. And that's exactly what happened against Liverpool. So.
It was. And I think it's like you say, you mentioned obviously the rotation, because Billie, Ange made 8 changes. And I think obviously in hindsight of things, with that game on Thursday being massive, were you kind of taken back with how many changes there were? Or was it more like, no, this is a nothing game, move on sort of thing?
Yeah, I was more probably the second one. I didn't really care much about the game for lots of reasons. But then, I don't know, I think Jim is exactly right. Like, Spurs have this like knack of making games that you don't care about. They still hurt. Like, we don't need to be that embarrassed. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to be that bad. Like, I feel like if you'd have just put the under-21s out, they would have at least been a lot more fight in there. And I feel like it's been a bit of a weird mishmash of rotation and getting minutes between players, because obviously he started Romero and Van de Ven against Forest, took them off at half time. Romero didn't start in this game, completely changed the centre-back pairing. It's just been a bit of a weird. I don't know the the psychology of it, whether it's actually better just to play your full team and put in a good performance, or rest them and take a massive loss. I don't know. Going into a big game, do you want to go off the back of a 5-1 loss? So, yeah, it just doesn't feel like we've got it right, but hopefully that will all dissipate on Thursday.
I hope so, because that was the thing, Jay. I think I kind of had in my head, and I think most of us Spurs fans deep down were kind of thinking, don't think we're going to get much from this game. But it was more the manner we kind of did things.
Well, we spoke about it the weekend beforehand, and we kind of had a little, not argument, but a chat about football, in the sense of that mentality is a real problem. That, okay, we've got Thursday, but we should still want to go into every game attempting to win or wanting to win. And yeah, okay, Thursday is important, but don't forget we've got the London Stadium Super Cup final at the weekend as well. That's what they call it anyway. So that's a big game. But I think that was the thing going into this. Obviously, we had limited expectations, and then Solanke scoring early kind of done what Spurs have done to us all year and given us a little bit of hope, and then watched it slowly dissipate away, goal after goal. So yeah, you want to see the fight from the players that haven't got their spaces in the squad and are being given the opportunities. But I think the feeling within the fan base and within the squad is infectious, in the sense that it's just like playing at the weekend, waiting for Thursday, playing on the weekend, waiting for Thursday, which is a poor mentality to have. But I think that's sadly where we're at the minute, because we've got nothing to play for.
Yeah, I think that is the thing, and I think the only thing we argue about is football. And we were kind of like, yeah, it is a nothing game, but it's all about momentum, isn't it, Jim? Because to come off a 5-1 loss to then go, obviously, for that game on Thursday, you're kind of thinking to yourself, you want a little bit to kind of get behind yourself. I know it's done wonders for Solanke scoring first, but the rest of the kind of squad, what's your kind of take on it?
Yeah, momentum's an interesting one, because I do believe in it. I believe in form, momentum being important, and the league being a better barometer of how consistent and good you are than looking at cup runs. Personally, that's just my view. But equally, I look at who's won cups in recent history, and there's lots of examples of clubs that were not doing well in the league. You just look at Man United, have pulled it off a couple of times in recent history as a prominent example, and ironically, they're in the same situation as us this year. And also, when I feel we were at the highest level I've ever seen us, the most consistent I've seen us in the league, I've seen our form dissipate when we get into cups. So those examples, we're a side that went to the Champions League final, and then within, I think it was less than 3 months later, we lost to Coventry and get knocked out the FA Cup. A side that's challenging for the Premier League title goes out to Ghent over 2 legs. So it is possible to have great runs in individual competitions when your league form isn't great, and equally to see your league form dissipate when you're fantastic in the league. So I don't think we need to worry too much about that. My main concern is, why are the players in a position where they're only motivating themselves for the Europa League? I want a squad that's fighting for every game. And I get Liverpool's a bit of an anomaly at the worst time, because I think high-flying Spurs, peak of our powers, probably still lose that game by a couple of goals. But we were truly smashed in that game, I thought. And I guess we'll get onto it later, but Archie Gray, it was kind of like everyone's been screaming out to see him at 6. And for that to be the one he was in there, it hurt, because we all want him to work at 6. We feel like we so desperately need someone in that position to be our linchpin of this system if it's got any hope of ever working. And to see him just get, absolutely obliterated by the best team in the world, arguably, unsurprisingly, at Anfield was a tough watch, wasn't it? But look, Bodo are a different type of opposition. They don't have the quality Liverpool have. They're still a reasonably good side, but I think they're more our level, and they are the reason why we have tiered competitions. It's a tier 2 competition, the Europa League, and we are not Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, Man City, tier 1. So that's our level, and I'm fine with that. And if we win it, to me, it's massive, and I would soak in and drink in every second of it.
100%. And I think that's the thing, because I'm glad you've mentioned Archie Gray, because Billie, for me, I was kind of, when I saw the team sheet and I was like, oh yes, Gray's there, he's playing as a 6, I can't wait. And then, like Jim said, he just kind of got obliterated in that midfield. I feel like Ange at times plays him at the wrong times when we see him. Like, chuck him in at Liverpool away, great, that's a great test, isn't it? But I feel like it was a bit too much for him.
Yeah, and I don't know why he didn't do it and, swap the games around last weekend, do it against Forest or something like that. Liverpool midfield 3 is as good as any in the world probably at this point. Gravenberch is an unbelievable player. And it's a tough game for anyone, so Bosley is in really good form too. And then I think, after we had a stretch of like 15 league games where Archie Gray was playing out of position and almost like saving Andy's arse week in, week out. And then he's played him in the midfield and then he's hooked him at half time, which is just like quite sickening, like man management, really. Like he's done that a couple of times before. He did it with Mikey Moore as well. I don't know what he's trying to get out of that because, yeah, I just felt like it was a bit of a thrown under the bus a little bit. And then it's almost like he's saying, well, you asked me to play him and I've done it. And now look what's happened. So, yeah, I'm not really impressed with the treatment of Archie Gray and some of the youngsters sometimes. I think taking off a youngster at half-time is always really harsh. And it's probably a massive... And you can pretend that it's not like a massive knock on their confidence, but deep down, it must be a big one.
And I think that's the most frustrating thing because I'm probably going to pick out... I know I wasn't going to go through goals before we came on, but Jay, that one goal that kind of happened, I think it was McAllister, where we were playing the ball around the back. I think you're on thingy, Jay. We played the ball around the back. And then we went to get rid of the ball. The ball was overplayed to Archie Gray, and Archie Gray just kind of doesn't have the muscle to not be dispossessed, gets dispossessed, and boom, the ball falls to McAllister and stuck in the back of the net. And that, for me, again, okay, it was Archie Gray that kind of lost the battle there, but we were playing it from the back again. We've seen this time and time, every single time we play in the Premier League, on other games as well. We cause our own problems.
I think that's the thing as well. I think Billie's hit the nail on the head with Archie Gray. He's all Ange is all for playing him when he's bailing him out, but then also when all the players are back, he drops him at the drop of a hat, and then expects him to turn up in these big games against Liverpool and just perform. That's not a player full of confidence if he's not been playing. That's a player that's been like, oh, cool, I've done you a favour and I've played really well, and all the fans are behind me, and I could be the future of this club too. Oh no, the big boys are back now, so off you go back to the bench, and I'll play you as and when. But yeah, I think it's just a team lacking confidence, and I think Billie again was also right with the man management side of things. There doesn't seem to be any consistency in Ange's ability to manage players, and if we're seeing like we had like Damola Rajayi come on in the Europa League, and we're chucking youngsters out left, right, and centre in the Europa League, and then we haven't seen them since, because now all of a sudden my job's on the line, and I'm going to play the players that obviously, yeah, we should go out to play to win, but if he's playing players to keep his job rather than for Spurs to succeed, then I don't know. I just think Archie Gray is the epitome of what's gone wrong here. Is that man management's gone out the window, and players are just there's no consistency, and players are just being used and dropped out of a hat. Like Odderbert's been brilliant, when he's played, and again, it's just that's the thing. You're half expecting Son to come back and just whoever was playing out there just to get dropped straight away. So, and Son's not been great this year either. So it's just the players bigger than the club, and we've had managers for ages tell us that that's one of the problems at this club is there are a lot of players that are bigger than the club, and that seems to be the problem here because Ange can't manage them.
I mean, it is interesting. Obviously, you bring up Sonny because I think we've all kind of seen. I know Salah has done absolutely crazy things this season, but I also think he came out and said something, Jim, in terms of because Slot is allowing me to play further forward, I don't have to track back. But sadly, in Son and Ange's system, there is a point where he has to track back at times because we're so high up in the press. And for me, I feel like that's why we haven't really seen the best out of Sonny.
Yeah, Sonny's an interesting one. He is definitely playing in a role that doesn't suit him. And I'm just looking up now because I was chatting to JJ, who's an actual coach, like qualified A licensed coach. Like, here's my football fan opinion, but like, because that clip's going around of us basically Liverpool getting the ball in the final third and just carving through us. You've probably seen it, and everyone's like, this is the picture that summarizes Spurs. And I said, like, how do you fix this? Like, as coaches, like, what do you do? And he just said, unfortunately, the big worry for him is one of the top 3 fundamentals when you go in to get your coach qualifications is balance and cover, and that doesn't really exist in this philosophy. There's not the balance side or the cover side. And then you've got players like Son, like you say, Hollie, who are over trying to compensate in other ways to kind of make up for it in weird makeshift ways. But the cover and the balance just isn't there. You can't fix that by asking Heung-min Son to do a bit more tracking. The whole system needs. It's frustrating. You think to us it looks easy, and I'm sure it's much harder than it looks. But to us, it just looks like surely you should have done in January or even the summer before is really focused on getting in another 6 that actually is valued there, keeping that player back, but also having someone else in the squad who's taking on that similar role, just doubling up at the back a bit more on these counters and sacrificing a little bit more going forward. But yeah, it's a lot of players in roles that aren't suited to them. But I would say of Son, the difference with him is he wasn't signed for this system. He was just, and I think it's unfortunate whoever kind of got Son. He's a lot better than what he showed this season, and he's still scored quite a few goals. He's a lot better than in a different system than he's shown this season. But it is Sonny on the decline, unfortunately. And I do think Ange has had 2 horrible jobs in the fact that he's picked up a side that was pretty much carried by 2 brilliant players post Pochettino for 4 or 5 years that carried them several positions up the league minimum every year. And he's had to be the one to deal with replacing those 2, superstars. But that doesn't mean that he hasn't made mistakes as well and made his own life more difficult in the process. But he has had a ridiculously difficult job in trying to do that. So yeah, and I just find it so frustrating looking at midfield. I think, God, we got that balance so wrong in the summer in hindsight. We so need that enforcer in midfield. It's just the balance of the squad just is not there. Lots of good individuals, just no structure to the team though.
Just a mess. And I think it was just, we all know that Liverpool have been incredible this season, and you kind of have to take a step back and just congratulate them the way they played. It just frustrates me the manner that we played it, Billie, because last week on the Hotspur Huddle when I was on with Wes, he was talking about Vicario, and when he was talking about Vicario, the fact that he needs to get him gone, I'm kind of done with him. I kind of sat there and thought, hang on a minute, like, are you okay, Wes? But I think the last couple of games I've actually seen it, Billie, and again at the weekend, I feel like the distribution and how frenzy Vicario can be at times just puts us under a lot of pressure.
I thought he was absolutely shocking yesterday, to be honest. And the amount of times that he passed directly to a Liverpool player is just. And what's really annoying me is he's now starting to do the Højbjerg thing of every time a goal goes in, blaming everyone else other than himself as well, which is really frustrating. I think he's an incredible shot stopper. I just think there's something in his head at the moment. It's been happening for about half a season since he came back from injury. There's something wrong with the mentality, sort of. There's not much introspection there, and he sort of, there's videos of him with Bergvall and stuff, and there's that thing where he came out and had to get the fans. I think, a lot of our players are reluctant to blame themselves sometimes, I think, which is probably a mentality and an ego thing, but, I just think it's really worrying, and I wonder what more could Kinski. I think Kinski at least deserved to start one of these, the Forest or the Liverpool game. He's rotating every other player in the Europa League. I know you don't often rotate goalkeepers. What kind of message does it send to Kinski, who Vicario has come back in and been pretty woeful, playing and just constantly being picked. I feel really that Kinski should have at least had one of these meaningless Premier League games at the moment.
And I think that's the thing as well. I think, obviously, don't get me wrong, there's been a few times Kinski did really well when he came in, Jay, and then obviously had a little bit of a shaky bit going on in a couple of games. But he is a lot better with his feet, and I think at times we do put ourselves under pressure because I just don't think Vicario's got any feet to be able to do something worthwhile when we play this style of football from the back.
Obviously, I will defend the goalkeepers union as always, like I always do when I'm on here. But the thing is, I would say is the goalkeeper position is always the epitome or the height of the symbol of a team, in the sense of, this is a team that lacks confidence. This is a team that isn't structured. This is a team that is all over the place, and you're seeing that in Vicario at the minute. Very erratic. Can have a sublime game, then have a shocking game. The game after. If I remember correctly, when Kinski made his debut, there was still those etchy moments, but I remember he had a really good game, but there were still those moments where I think if you're a goalkeeper in a team that is full of confidence and playing well, You're more in sync. Those playing out from the back is more consistent because players are always in the right positions. They know what they're doing. They know that they're going to receive the ball the way they want to receive the ball. They would have worked on patterns, etc., etc. So I think, it's difficult with. I wouldn't say bin off Vicario. I think he is a sublime shot stopper. I do agree with Billie that his management of his teammates maybe needs to be a little bit better. Maybe that'll come with a bit more maturity. I know, obviously, like Billie pointed out, the incident with Bergvall was just totally unneeded. Bergvall actually tracked back and made the tackle, and we all still remember that now. Do you know what I mean? So it's picking your battles. I don't think that's the position that changes this team. I don't think that's the position that gets us out of this scenario. I think whoever, if Ange goes at the end of the year, I think whoever comes in can pick him up as our number one. I do feel for Kinski, though, if he is been sold a dream, essentially. And I've seen some stuff on Twitter about, they're saying, well, wait a minute, we were going to sign at the end of the year for this exact reason, because he wasn't going to get any game time. And now Slavia Prague have won the league, and you've got Champions League football, and he could have been part of that. Instead, he's been rotting away on our bench when Brandon Austin was doing okay and could have filled that substitute goalkeeper position perfectly fine.
Yeah, I do get that. I do feel sorry for Kinski, but you do make a valid point in the sense that if most of the team is a mess, then your keeper is going to be a bit fraught as well. But it was just interesting because obviously that's 15 goals Liverpool scored against us this season, Jim. And then when you look at that stat, it is honestly ridiculous.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you have to give Liverpool a little bit of credit, but it's not an excuse. You can't use it as an excuse that Liverpool are amazing, but they are amazing. And you expect at the end of the season, if you had to place your money on one team that you were going to concede the most goals against, it would be Liverpool, right? Basically, they're the best team in the league. That's all. But 15 is crazy, right? That's just, yeah. There's deeper lying problems when that's happening. But like Jay was saying, then it's kind of it's a sum of many parts that are failing. It's an accumulation of a goalkeeper that has his fragilities, that's been in and out of a team and hasn't had a consistency, who can't rely on the defenders in front of him, because look, the same centre-back pairing is completely changing within 90 minutes every game at the moment, because they can't keep them on for 90 minutes, whereas the best teams are able to play their starting centre-backs for typically months on end. And then you go, oh, look, Liverpool lost Van Dijk. Here's another great centre-back who's going to solidly stay in there with another really good centre-back for 3-4 months. With Spurs, it's like, you go down to your fourth and fifth choice very quickly, and it's just all disrupted. We've got this weird dilemma of having two incredible left wing back options in Spence and Udogie, which weirdly impacts the team in a negative way as well, because there's just that inconsistency again. Very different left backs as well. Like, one's obviously cutting inside and using his right foot. They're brilliant, but you're kind of, again, the cohesion is always changing. I don't think, like with Spurs, you're like, there's the strongest 11. And I know we've had managers say you don't have a strongest 11 in the squad, but you do have a strongest team. Like, you ask Liverpool, Man City fans, what's your strongest 11? I guarantee you they could pick at least 9 of those players that they would all align on. Whereas with Spurs, I reckon we'd all agree on 4 or 5 at best, and then we'd all be arguing about the rest, which just sums up where the cohesion problems are. And then even when you've got those best 4 or 5, 2 of them are extremely injury prone and not available most of the time anyway. So it's got some rebuilding to do still across the whole park, in my opinion. The season's been a realization, particularly when Kane left, the squad wasn't as good as we thought it was. I think there were some players I thought were better than they were. And I was still clinging on to the hope that if we kind of threw money at the problem, we could kind of patch it up quite quickly. And the reality is it's a lot more complicated than that. It's going to take time. You've got more clubs in the game now for the type of players we had free reign out. We were, outside of City and Liverpool and Chelsea, we were the top dogs when it came to picking out players in the Premier League with Arsenal. But now I feel like we're now fishing in the same pond as Villa and Newcastle as well. And it's so much more harder for us to find those players, because realistically, you're probably going to choose a Newcastle over a Spurs. because you look at a club as a player and you go, well, they're owned by a state. There's only one way that club's going, and it is flying upwards, and I want to get on the coattails of that. Whereas with Spurs, it's kind of like great stadium, huge club, but history shows, a lot of things it's not quite as a safe bet, in my view, if you're a player. So it's harder for us to get those players.
No, definitely. And I think that's the thing that I've never, ever kind of understood, Billy, in terms of, with obviously Enoch and Levy, in the sense that I've always believed if you invest on the pitch, you're going to see success. So why you've done it off the pitch, do it on the pitch, because you're only going to get higher up the rankings, like Jim has said, in terms of, I don't really know where Spurs kind of lie at the moment, because like Jim said, I'd probably choose Newcastle over Tottenham if you ask me right now. Like it's sad how far we've kind of fallen.
Yeah, we're going to get left behind if we're not really, really careful. I think, the winning the Europa League will maybe be a shot in the arm that we kind of need. But if we don't get that, then I seriously worry, because you've got your traditional top 5 other teams that are always going to spend money, and they always do. In Man United, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City. But now, as Jim was alluding to, you've now got your sort of Villas, Newcastle, even Forest are now in that mix. So these two teams are going to relentlessly spend, because their owners do not, have caution like ours do. They don't care about things like PSR. Aston Villa's wage percentage is 96% of their revenue. They don't care. Like, they sold John Duran in January. They tried to sell the women's team to each other like Chelsea did. Chelsea did that, sending hotels to each other. The fact is, we are the only club that have this sort of chairman that seems to be worried about these kind of things. I'm not asking us to be Man City and go completely careless and go and spend a fortune and then get in trouble with PSR. I'm just asking us to be competitive. That's all that we want, and have a little bit of ambition beyond balancing the books. Because make no mistake about it, for all of their PSR worries, Aston Villa, Nottingham Forest, Newcastle, and these teams, they want to win something, and they're going to spend and they spend, with the directive of winning something. Whereas we seem to be very, very cautious about, making sure that, I think there's a report that's come out today, isn't there, saying it's going to be a sell to buy summer for us. He said in his own financial statement about, people keep saying we're the 9th richest club in the world, but we can't spend money that we don't have. It's not the kind of messaging you want to be hearing after a horrifically bad season. You want to hear everything out the club saying we're gonna address this situation and we're going to spend money to get it right, but we seem to get the opposite of that, which is deeply worrying to me.
Definitely. And I think that's the thing. I feel like if you breed success on the pitch, Joe, you're going to get the money coming. You're going to want players to come join you. You're going to go further up the league. You're going to go further into competitions. But we just don't really have that kind of mentality.
No, and that's the thing as well, going back to what Billie was saying about, like, if you look at what we were promised as a club with the new stadium, what we're going to be in trouble with is when we fall behind, because I know but Everton have got a new ground, Fulham have had their new stand put in, Leeds are looking at already putting in their renovations on their new stadium. How long will it be before there's 20 other clubs that have got 60 odd thousand capacity stadiums that can host music events, and then all of a sudden that advantage that we had, that financial advantage we had, is gone, and we're just another stadium who just changed first. We've not capitalized in the time that we should have capitalized on having extra revenue over other clubs. I can't say that we've not spent, and I think recruitment's been a big problem, but I think that more is where my problems with the ownership come from a stakeholder perspective. I think looking at a football club is different from looking at just a profit and loss sheet. I think it can't be analysed like that, and I think Daniel Levy does analyse it like that, and a lot of people that will come out and defend him do. I mean, I work in finance, so obviously, yeah, it's good that he's got a good profit and loss sheet, but he can't manage those clubs. There is a way to do both, and I feel like he's only interested in keeping the club afloat, which is a great thing, because it's great that we'll be able to be moaning about this podcast in 20 years' time and 30 years' time, because we've got a sustainable club and Beyonce played there once. We'll have that, and we won't have the worries that other clubs have. But I think there's a level of going too far, and there's managers change, players change. I still think the painful rebuild that was once built can't happen until the people that were there aren't there, and that's why I think Son going and new ownership and not Pochettino coming back is the only way that this club gets past that, because we've still got players from the old regime, we've still got an owner from the old regime, and if the club really needs to restart, then we're not going to be able to do that. And sadly, yeah, it's going to be painful, and we are going to watch Harry Kane win a trophy, and Son will probably leave us and go somewhere and win a trophy. But it's not like we haven't seen the 15 other players that have left our club gone and done that before. So it's nothing that us Spurs fans can't take.
And I think the elephant in the room now that needs to be addressed as well. Like before, if we got complacent as a football club, we'd maybe finish 8th. We're 16th, 17th at the moment. Burnley got relegated 2 years ago with 17 losses. We've got 19 at the moment. If we regress further next season, we could be bang in trouble. Like the threat of relegation has never really been something I've been genuinely concerned about, but now it's very real. Like we're lucky that there are 3 horrific championship teams that have sort of kept us afloat. If we get this wrong this summer, what's going to happen there? Like could be in serious trouble. So it's a huge summer, and the last thing you want to be hearing is, we have to sell to buy, and we can't spend what we don't have. We need to put some serious money in to address this horrific situation that we're in.
And I think that's the thing with me. I think we've kind of managed to go along to try and stay afloat and it will be fine. But now I feel like it's actually hitting us straight in the face, Jim, in the sense, because like Billy said, we are very low down in the table. And I think for me, it's the lowest I've ever seen us. And it does all kind of, I know the summer's going to be massive. I know there's talks about Romero leaving, who we're going to bring in, etc., etc. But for me, I know we don't joke. I know we talk about it, but Thursday's game is massive. Just because if we do manage to get that over the line, get through to the final, and we win the final, we're all of a sudden seem like a team where players might want to come and join because we're in Europe again.
Yeah, it does change a lot. It changes a lot, but there's a couple of bits I think we don't like to kind of almost believe because it helps us cope. But I think copium's the term, isn't it, that goes around at the moment. And one is, I think that because of the size of club we are, we can just dig our way out by spending money and just getting out of it because we're Tottenham Hotspur. I think it's so competitive now for good players that it's way more complex than that. And I think where we've been gone wrong is thinking we could do that. Because when we all know, like post stadium, yeah, great, we have spent 120 million net a season. We could have done more on wages, but it doesn't kind of work that. It's kind of like Football Manager, the sliding scale. If you're spending a lot on transfers, you spend less on wages, all that stuff. What irks me more is the amount we spent, we should be challenging for something. And it was gross mismanagement of how we used that money that we can never now get back. That frustrates me and puts me in a position where I don't trust the people leading those decisions to suddenly start getting it right. I don't think they're like, I don't look at them and go, just spend more. I'm thinking, if I gave you £100 million more, I don't think you'd spend it properly again. I would rather just, like, more important than anything is knowing the right people at Tottenham are spending our money now, because if we keep burning it all down like this, we owe a huge amount in transfer payables now. It's catching us up. Our transfer budgets are plummeting, and the stories are coming out that we're going to have to sell before we buy without Europe, like you guys said earlier. Like, that situation keeps compounding and keep wasting more and more money on the wrong strategy and the wrong players. We're just going to dig in a deeper and deeper hole here. So we need to get out of that. But winning Europa does. So that was one kind of thing. I think we like to think we can just drop 100 million quid and poof, we're back up above mid-table again. I think it's more complicated than that now. But also winning Europa League, I don't think that fixes as much as people say it will. It gets to the Champions League, brilliant. That's huge. It adds whatever 50 million quid to your transfer budget and makes you a bit more appealing. But players they're not stupid. They're going to look at clubs and their agents and say, yeah, but I'm not looking at this club over what I get from them next season. I want to know what I get out of Tottenham for the length of my client's 5-year contract. And if it's a run in the Champions League and then a relegation fight the next season, that they don't care that they're going to have Champions League for one season. But if it's Champions League and a project that excites them and they can see a club that's aim is to win the Premier League, I think that's far more exciting for a player than a club that kind of looks, we won a trophy, got in the Champions League, brilliant, but isn't heading in the general direction it should be. No, and I don't think it's as doom and gloom as we're kind of saying. I think I don't actually think we're going to be in a relegation fight next year at all. I don't think it's going to be that bad, but I do think we're a while away. I think we're years away from challenging back and being consistently in the top 4. Like next year, we're not going to suddenly be fighting for a title. If we got 6th next year, I'll go, that's surpassed my expectations, like significantly. And that's just where we are right now. But yeah, look, there is exciting parts of it. We have got all these brilliant young players coming through, but we have to get this transfer strategy with balance now. And I really hope this new CEO, Vinay, is given control, because I know there's concerns he's just going to run the operational side, the commercial side. I really hope he is building the football structure side and continuing to work with Langer on a transfer strategy with an actual 5-year plan and vision, because that's what will get us back on the map.
Yeah, and we need to do that because there's been far too many times that we've kind of sit and just trying to ride the wave and it just hasn't worked, Billie. And like I say, going into Thursday, I actually did my homework for once. And obviously they have 2 players suspended and 2 new injuries. So I'm kind of clutching at straws here, Billie, but it could be a big game for us. I think we saw Madders in his post-match interview against Liverpool basically saying we're not listening to any of the noise. We're fully focused on Thursday. That does give me a little bit sense of belief. But how are you feeling going into this game?
Yeah, and just on that, very, very briefly, I wish they would listen to the noise a little bit more. And then, I don't think you have to throw every single game to be able to beat Bodo Glimt at home. But, it's a buy of the buy. It's obviously the most important game of the season. And generally speaking, all will be forgiven if they do win it. So, and I predict us to win it as well. We should be beating these, let's be real, particularly with the injuries that they had. I was listening to this guy on a podcast this morning that grew up in Norway. He's a Bodo and Tottenham fan. And he was saying that the players that they've got injured is like really significant and suspended. I think their best player is suspended, number 6, Berger, I think his name is, and then they had 2 injuries at the weekend. So yeah, it's a massive, massive opportunity and one that we can't afford to be complacent about. But at the same time, I'm pretty confident that we'll win this one, and then we can, hopefully look back on the misery that we've suffered this season and thinking, actually, you know what, we're in a Europa League final. We have a decent chance of winning the trophy and being in the Champions League. And hopefully it will all be worth it, because, my God, to us fans that have, been through this season, we've been through the ringer like nothing I've ever experienced before. The fan experience of 19 league losses is awful. It's been horrific. But, no one deserves it more at the moment than Tottenham fans. You're getting that trophy. So all will be forgiven on Thursday, hopefully.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm fed up of doing therapy sessions. I thought the Jose and Conte era was bad, but my God. But Jay, what's your kind of thoughts going into on Thursday?
It has to be convincing. We've all been Spurs fans long enough to know that anything but convincing going away to Norway with a week's rest for Bodo Glimt is exactly the recipe that Spurs would seem to always cook up. I was watching a streamer saying that if Spurs don't win at least 3-0 at home, I wouldn't be confident going away. And that also goes back to the character of the players. I think that would be a concern. There's only going to be 300 away fans, I think they reported, when we go out there. And yeah, I think this game is a chance for the players who have done a lot of talking this year. If they're saying, "Oh, we're going to focus on Thursday, all eyes on Thursday, all eyes on Thursday," and to their credit, against Frankfurt, they did that and they turned up in that second leg, and they said, "Oh, they're all posting their Instagram stories, all getting ready," and that's fine, but you've got to back it. And against a Bodo Glimt team that lost multiple times in the group stages of this new Europa League system, against teams, like Sparta Prague, again, teams that I know, obviously, we've got to be careful of. I'll end up being like your friend Mel Hollie is talking about Brighton and them man there, but we've got to be careful talking about teams like Bodo Glimt and not respecting the fact that we are Tottenham Hotspur. We went to Dinamo Zagreb with the tie in our hands, ready for it, and Orsic tore us to shreds. So we've been there before. We've seen this script, but for me, going back to what we were saying about recruitment, I don't think us winning the Europa League fixes this problem. I think we're going to have the same problem that United are going to have if they win this competition. That we're going to go into the season and people are going to be like, if I move to that club, it could be a career ender for me. Managers have come here and ended their careers. Players have come here and, fallen off a cliff and then picked up their careers after they've found an intermediary club and then moved on somewhere else. So I think we have to win. And I think if we lose to Bodo Glimt, even over 2 legs, but in both legs particularly, I think this could go down as one of the worst Spurs seasons of all time.
I don't think that's far-fetched either. I think it just has been an absolute mess from start to finish. And like we've all kind of said, I don't think it kind of puts us in good stead for next season, even if we win this, Jim. But it would at least raise my spirits a little bit that we've had an awful season, but we've come away with a trophy.
Oh, absolutely. Like, look, we pull off that win. All the misery disappears for that summer break, 3 months. I'm just going to soak it in, enjoy it. We have won a huge trophy. I'll be on the high road. I'll be celebrating, and I'm going to get the biggest bottle of whatever you want to call it, Kool-Aid, copium, whatever it is, and I'm going to drink it down and dream that everything is going to completely and miraculously turn around in the upcoming season. And just get really excited for who we're linked with player-wise. Let's face it, like, unless something drastic changes, it's going to be the new manager coming in. So that would be like that's typically most of the time like an exciting journey to begin, something new and fresh and a new voice. I just hope as we as fans we can just unify behind whoever that is, and even if they don't make a change, unify behind the manager, because whoever comes in next has got a really, really big task on their hands. And I think they do have one big advantage, and that will be that we've had our expectations crushed and reset as Spurs fans, and we will look at that manager and say, yeah, this is a big job you've got. And, finishing 8th is acceptable in your first season. We've got your back. Just please hold your own in the North London derby. Don't get humiliated by 5 goals away from home, and get a tune out of some players like Maddison, Solanke, Burryval, Van der Ven, others we know that are brilliant players. Just get those people consistently and bring some balance back to our side, and we'll crack on from there. And it would be such a wonderful end to the season. I've never seen Spurs lift I have actually. I saw us lift the League Cup, but I was like at school, right? I barely remember it now. So I want to see it as an adult so much.
I preach. And I think that's the thing. I think there's been too much doom and gloom this season, Billy. I think we're under no illusion that regardless of what happens on Thursday or at the end of this season, I think Ange is kind of cutting his losses his losses, our losses, and going. I think that's a certain now.
Yeah, I wish he was cutting our losses, to be honest. But yeah, I think so. And I would want nothing more. I've been a giant supporter of Ange. I'm sad that it's ended the way that it has, but want nothing more than him to sort of win a trophy right off into the sunset with the Europa League. And I think that's what's going to happen either way now. I think even if he wins it, I don't think he'll be here. But what better way to cement yourself as an absolute Spurs legend by being the most successful manager in 40 years? And I think it'll be brilliant. And then we can sort of look forward to next season. By no means is it, no illusions that it's not papering over a few cracks, but at least it's a good springboard for whoever comes in next.
And I think that's what we need, don't we, Jay? I think finish off on a nice positive note. I think when the season ends and finally there's no more podcasts for me to do because the season is done, I think we'll all hopefully be in a better place come the next season.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely be able to enjoy our weekends more, that's for sure. I think the new season needs to be a new start, and without going on about it, it has to be a new start. If I see the Pochettino compilations on my timeline one more time, I will possibly delete the app. It's just a thing. I think we need a fresh start. We need the painful rebuild, and that does include, like Jim was so rightly saying, and I think being on social media is probably the worst thing ever, but seeing a lot of the entitlement that a lot of our fan base have to being a big club. And I never used to understand why a lot of fans didn't like us as a fan base, but I kind of understand it. We are quite entitled. What have we done bar a Champions League final and a League Cup? you know, like Jim said, when like back at school, you know, it's just ridiculous. But I think a fresh start is what we need, and I think as a fan base, we just need to all get behind whatever next year has in store for us. But it just needs to be fresh. It needs to be new, and it just can't be the same old dross.
Yeah, I'm not doing this for another season. I can't hack it anymore. Honestly, I'm so grey. But yeah, hopefully come Thursday, we're all in a great mood and we can look ahead, hopefully get the job done in the second leg, forget all the Premier League games and then ride into the sunset for the summer. But you know what, guys, it's been amazing tonight to kind of dissect that and kind of look ahead to next season as well. So we'll go around the table and say goodbye. So Jim, thank you once again for joining me. Where can everybody find you doing your thing?
Thanks, Hollie. Yeah, we actually just started a TikTok and Instagram account as well. So just Billie's on it as well. Maybe it's just like, you know, the moment when everyone jumps on the craze in our kind of circle, demographic, whatever you want to call it. I've been avoiding it for ages. But yeah, find us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. YouTube's the main place we post stuff, but we also do all the audio pods as well. So pretty much any platform, except for Patreon. I don't do that.
Lovely stuff. But like I say, thank you again, Jim. And also, Billie T, where can everybody find you as well?
Yeah, Billie T on Twitter, and I have started a TikTok. Just starting to think about my team for West Ham already, but let's get in there. And I hope everyone has a good one on Thursday. Massive game. Nervous already, but this is what we do it for, right?
100%. But no, thank you again, Billie. And Jay as well, my super sub, as I like to call you, after I've friend zoned you already tonight. So where can everybody find you doing your thing?
You can find me sat right next to the host herself. Incredible. But no, yeah, you can find me on Twitter, j.johnson26, normally spouting some absolute horrendous footballing opinions. But if you like that sort of stuff, you can find me there and on here when you need a last minute sub.
Right, thanks again, Jay. But like I say, thank you to everybody else that's obviously watching live now. That is also going to be rewatching this too. Like I say, it's been a tough one this season. But I do appreciate everybody that's kind of dropped in, said hello, and got involved in the chat. But yeah, hopefully next week we'll be in a bit of a lighter mood. I will be joined with. Oh, go on, Billie. You're gonna say something?
Oh no.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were going to say something. Sorry. Also on Wednesday, I'll be joined by Nelson and Wes for the Hotspur Huddle. There's a lot to talk about on that show. Not just Spurs. We're kind of branching out a little bit. Basically, I will ask the questions. The boys will talk about everything else about football rather than me just talk about Spurs. So make sure you tune into that one. And until next time, come on, you Spurs.
Go you Spurs.